The rise of the new media. Over the last 8 or 9 years, the rise of the new media within the NBA specifically has been something amazing to witness. We're seeing players using their voices in ways we've never seen before. There's a lot of fans out there that have issues with active players like Paul George and Draymond Green doing podcasts regularly during the season, but is this really the problem they make it out to be? In this video, I'm going to be talking about the rise of the new media within the NBA and why we should appreciate witnessing the evolution of sports media in real time. This is JBadge Raps, Episode 2. Let's get it. 20 years ago, when I was just 8 years old, if you told me that NBA players would have their own platforms where they break down the game from their perspective and gave us first-hand stories about what's going on behind the scenes and in the locker room, I would probably say that you was crazy. See, back in the late 90s and early 2000s, ESPN had hit its prime. The network reached its peak in terms of influence, viewership, and overall cultural impact. One of the biggest reasons for this was the rise of personalities. We saw people like Stuart Scott, Stephen A. Smith, Tony Kornheiser, Mike Wilbon rise to prominence. Fans, including myself, loved coming home as a kid and watching shows like Pardon the Interruption and Around the Horn. It's crazy to think that this was really all we had to stay in the loop on all sports news. If anything was going on behind the scene with players or in the locker room, ESPN was going to be the first place we'd probably hear about it from. But how did players feel about this? Because a lot of things can get misinterpreted when information is passed from an insider to another insider to a reporter. Things could just get messy. Players back then didn't have the same platform to rebut false claims and rumors. A lot of perceptions were painted inaccurately, and while some things were true, much of what we heard about athletes was incomplete and distorted. So what started to change all this? By the early 2010s, social media began to rise. Platforms like YouTube were growing, but more importantly, Twitter was emerging as one of the biggest social media apps. Unlike MySpace or Facebook, Twitter had its own unique style and approach. People quickly gravitated towards Twitter and it became essential for anyone with celebrity status, including athletes. Now, I ain't gonna lie, I may have or I may have not been one of the original NBA trolls on Twitter way back in the day. I may have or may have not gone back and forth with Dwight Howard about his post game. I may have or may have not got Brandon Rush's account deleted because I was trolling him about something to do with Kareem Rush and singing. I don't even remember, bro. I was wilding. May have or may have not been wilding. My mom, God rest her soul, may have or may have not made me delete the account when she found out what her 14-year-old son was doing. I think one of my brothers actually told on me, may have or may have not. But here's my point of even saying all that. Twitter gave players their first opportunity to clap back at narratives about them. We went from having almost no direct interaction with athletes to having access to them at the click of a button. Fans and players were interacting with each other like we never seen before. In my opinion, this was the early stages of what we know now as the new media. Now let's talk about some of the first original player podcasts. So in 2016, JBadge started their own podcast. But even before then, 10 years earlier actually, in 2006, Gilbert Arenas had a blog on NBA.com called the Gilbert Arenas blog. He pretty much used this platform to give a behind-the-scenes look at his life and share his thoughts on the NBA. His unfiltered commentary was a huge hit because fans loved his humor and raw approach, similar to what you see now. In 2007, Gil actually even created a video series called Agent Zero on NBA.com, and you could imagine this showcased way more of his personality. The series mixed comedy, basketball insight, and his everyday experiences, giving fans a unique view of his life outside of basketball. I don't think people realize how groundbreaking this was at the time. It literally paved the way for athletes to start using social media and their personal platforms to connect with fans in a more direct and informal way. We should definitely all give credit to Gilbert for being a pioneer when it comes to players using their voices. So now we're here in 2025. The new media continues to grow at a rapid pace. Think about it, we got Gil's Arena, a show for debate, sometimes chaotic and a lot of laughs. On top of that, just very diverse just because they have so much different players on there and so much different experiences. Knuckleheads podcast, honestly, all of our favorite players have probably been up there at some point. On that show, they kind of just specialize at this point in just getting the players' experiences from high school all the way up to get into the league and just going through it. We got Club 520. I just think they do a good job of keeping us updated on just news in the sports world, but also having a lot of humor inside of it, just not too serious, just something you could throw on. Of course, we had JJ podcast too, the old man in the three before he became a coach. That was a good podcast that got more in depth just on the game, actually good interviews and all that. Draymond Green and Paul George's podcast. They give active player perspective. Tony Allen and Zebo just started their own show. Carmelo, shout out to him, has his own show now, 7 p.m. in Brooklyn. And he just added the 2K GOAT. Real ones know, Rudy Gay on there now. And just yesterday, actually, LeBron's second season of Mind the Game just dropped with Steve Nash. I know there's probably plenty of other podcasts that I didn't mention, but you get the point. Player podcasts are on the rise, and this is one market that I honestly feel could never get oversaturated. There's so many different experiences, perspectives, and personalities in the NBA, so there's a podcast for every mood that you're in. It makes you wonder, why will we ever watch TV networks like ESPN again? The truth is, most of these shows cover the same hot topics as ESPN or other sports networks, but what sets them apart is that they're unfiltered and raw. These players offer first-hand experiences. No matter how great like somebody like Stephen A. Smith is, there's only so much a reporter can do without actual first-hand experience. And that's where we start to see conflict. Players don't always agree with the media's portrayal of their world. Even players who are on TV are starting their own podcasts outside of the networks. Let's face it, getting a gig at ESPN is great, but TV is structured, fabricated, and filtered. Players see their colleagues getting to share unfiltered experiences, and they want a piece of that too. Alright, now I want to address the criticism of active players doing podcasts like Draymond Green and Paul George. I'm not even gonna lie, as a Warriors fan, I'm even guilty of making jokes about Draymond rushing to do his podcast after a Warriors playoff loss. But is this really the distraction that we make it to be as fans? I think people look at athletes as if they're just characters, and seeing them outside of their sport can feel foreign to them. The reality is, athletes aren't in the gym 24/7, nor are they supposed to be in the gym 24/7. If Draymond spends 2 hours doing a podcast, it's not the end of the world. If I were a coach, honestly, I'd be happy one of my star players is spending his downtime recording a podcast rather than being out partying or doing God knows what. Same thing when it comes to Paul George. If he's not spending that time recording a podcast after his workouts and all that is done, even if he's doing 2-a-days, his downtime has to be spent on something else. I know that he plays video games and stuff like that, so these players are human, you guys. They're going to be doing something in their downtime. Why not have that something be a podcast, something productive actually? Shoot, since we're on this subject, I don't understand why Angel Reese had got so much criticism for starting her podcast. Most of her episodes were recorded during the off season. Her podcast started September 5th. The WNBA season ended September 19th, I believe. Fans need to realize, and I know a lot of people just don't like Angel Reese for whatever reason, but even if she's doing 2-a-day workouts, there is still so much time left in a day. At least let her do something productive in her free time like a podcast, especially when we all know that the WNBA doesn't pay their players much. They actually got to get to the bag. Let them do it. To wrap this thing up, though, I just want to say to all the young fans and hoopers out there, embrace this time. Being able to hear directly from professional athletes and get their first-hand experiences is something that we should cherish. It's definitely something that I wish I could have had when I was a kid. To all the athletes out there paving the way for this new media, we appreciate you guys. And to any other athletes out there, whether you're active, retired, you went overseas to play, whatever it is, don't hesitate to enter this space. There's room for everybody, and your stories are all valuable. Appreciate you guys for tuning in to JBadge Raps Episode 2. I hope you guys enjoyed this format. Do me a favor and drop your favorite athlete podcast in the comments. Let me know which athlete you think needs to start a podcast. Also, be sure to like, subscribe, and become a member of my Patreon. You can find the link inside the description. You'll get early access to content like this before it goes on YouTube.